Alright. Truth is, that brickmaker cove was in the cabin of the omnibus the whole time.
Hold it!
And you were hiding in the cabin at the time as well, weren't you, Miss Lestrade? If I remember rightly, in the storage compartment underneath one of the seats. Yeah, that's right. It's pitch black under there, so you can't see nothing at all. Now, in your testimony 2 months ago, I feel certain that you claimed Mr. McGill was the sole passenger, did you not?
False testimony, my lord.
That's what he told me to say. That's what he told me I ought to say. But it's important that you were to tell us the truth now. Were Mr. McGilden and the victim acquaintances?
I don't know, but I did hear him talking a lot.
What were they talking about?
Well, I couldn't hear too well, but if I ought to say, I think it was about money or something. They kept talking about buying and not buying.
Perhaps business dealings of some kind.
Well, anyway, they got louder and louder. It started to sound like a proper fight. I was pretty scared by then. I hardly dared to breathe. And then all of a sudden, I heard a noise like someone keeling over on the floor. It was blooming loud and all.
And I believe you let out an involuntary scream.
Yeah, that's what gave me away. When the Irishman dragged me out from under the seat, I saw that disc on the floor.
Was the disc you saw this disc?
Yeah, I reckon it probably was. It was right next to the cove lying on the floor. Could this disc have belonged to the victim, perhaps? I don't know, but McGill picked it up pretty smartish. And then he sat a cove with the knife in his belly up to the seat.
What did he say to you at that time?
He told me not to say a word about what's in or heard to no one. But the disc and all. I was dead scared. The way he was looking at me, I thought, if I didn't go along with it, I'd get stuck with that knife too. Then he started asking me a lot of questions. Like what my name was, where I lived and that. He asked me about being a diver too.
But after a while, what had happened in the carriage was noticed?
Yeah, that's right. First there was a kind of a rapping noise. All of a sudden I heard a scream from over my head, and that pair on the roof deck went off to call the slopes.
There were 2 gentlemen occupying the seat on the roof deck, I believe.
That's right. I must have looked down through the skylight and noticed a cove with a knife in his guts. When they screamed, the driver pulled up the horses and McGilly got me outside. Out of sight? Where to? Back under the sea where I started off. Once the carriage came to an halt, the 2 coves from the roof ran off to fetch the stops. If they immediately left to fetch the police, it would appear they were entirely unrelated to the incident.
So that left McGilden, the driver, and you still at the scene.
Yeah, only the driver didn't know I was there because I was under the seat. I heard the cabin door open and a voice from outside. The driver, yes, he also testified in the trial, I believe. A fellow who went by the name of Beppo, if memory serves.
What did McGilden and the driver have to say to each other?
I don't know what happened, and so like that, mainly. That's when Mr. McGill did set the driver some tin to do a run to the pawn shop right back.
That pawn shop obviously being Windobanks on Baker Street.
Just a moment, Counsel. Do you mean to tell me that the driver gave false testimony in that trial as well? Perhaps the excursion to the pawnbroker slipped his mind when he was in the stand. Indeed, Lord Van Zeeks. McGill took off his coat and gave it to the driver. He folded it up all careful like before handing it over. When I saw him do that, I remember thinking that coat and what's in it's got to be worth a few bob.
Yeah, Gina was sure the disc must be worth than Mr. Winterbeck was suggesting, wasn't she? I remember her quibbling with him over the price that afternoon at the pawnbrokery.
The driver looked pretty happy when McGill had flashed some brass in his face. He went running off in a flick. Then the brook trotter called to me and told me to come out from the drag's cabin. He threatened me not to snitch, not to say nothing to no one about what I'd seen or heard.
Threaten you how, exactly?
Told me I'd only be able to scamper if I did exactly what he said. Which included giving false testimony in court 2 months ago.
Yeah, that's it. And there was one other thing he said.
Which was?
He told me I'd have to hang on to the ticket from the pawn shop and make sure not to lose it.
The ticket?
Well, I never.
Said that if he didn't show up to get the ticket off me before 2 months passed, I had to go to the pawn shop and pay her money to keep it in luck, to stop it being forfeited. He left me with some brass to pay for it.
But really, why on earth would Mr. McGill have done such a thing? Depositing his overcoat with the pawnbroker before the arrival of the police, it makes no sense at all. There would seem to be only one logical explanation, my lord. What McGill had the driver deposit at Windybanks was something he didn't want the police to see. Something very important that he needed to hide at all costs.
Anyway, after that, he let me go, so I left him before the coppers showed up.
Well done, Gina. It can't have been easy to tell the truth like that.
Gina's really put her faith in you right now.
Yeah, and to thank her, she'll have to face a charge of perjury when this trial's over. So I need to use the time we have now to get as much information out of her as possible.
It's time to really go in for it. Press her on every statement.
I suppose I should.
Oh, and another thing.
What's that?
Take a look at those two. Isn't it strange that they've been whispering to each other the entire time?
Yeah, that is strange. Looks they're having a secret discussion about something. I'm not sure I'm completely comfortable with that. I wonder if there's anything I can do about it. Maybe I can do this. Gentlemen, what's going on here?
Excuse me.
Is there something you'd like to share with the court, Inspector Gregson and Mr. Graydon?
And we went straight up his bum.
Inspector! Mr. Graydon!
Whoa! Blimey! You trying to give me an heart attack?
You have been whispering to each other for quite some time now. Tell us, what is the discussion about?
Discussion? With this fella? Pull the other one, sunshine. You think I've got anything to talk about with the shady Jan like this?
And I have nothing to say to this uncouth detective after he deprived me of that disc that was rightfully mine. They've clearly been talking the entire time I've been cross-examining Gina. It's as if they've been negotiating.
Thank you, Mr. Strahd. Thank you, Counsel. I've had enough.
I believe we now have a reasonable understanding of what actually transpired on the omnibus.
It would appear on that night 2 months ago, a negotiation was taking place on the omnibus. A negotiation concerning this disc. However, matters did not run smoothly. When the parties involved began to quarrel over price, McGilda took what he wanted by force, at the expense of the other man's life.
Which proves my point. The disc is clearly extremely valuable in some way. Although I don't understand why as yet.
2 days ago, precisely 2 months after the omnibus incident, McGilda's coat and its contents were due to be forfeited.
I don't know what I should do with the ticket. I mean, a cab died right after its trial, I knew that.
So you decided you would try to claim the articles as your own?
Well, why not, eh? They were only going to be forfeited. Why shouldn't I have got them? Anyway, you can't blame me for thinking about it. Thinking ain't no crime.
Mr. Stride, it would appear Mr. McGill was prepared to kill in order to take possession of this disc. Do you know why that would be?
I ain't got a clue. But I reckon it must be worth a fair bit of brass. You probably was going to sell it. And you can't blame me for thinking that. Thinking ain't no crime.
My lord, the evidence you wrote should request has been located and is ready for the court's inspection, sir.
The mysterious little box deposited by McGill did 2 months ago. There's no doubt in my mind that it's a key piece in this far-reaching puzzle. But what could it be? We'll find out next time. To be continued.
So this is the article in question, is it? The small box deposited with the pawnbroker by Mr. McGill did 2 months ago.
Around the night of Mr. Windybank's murder, the only item on the shelves that was touched by whoever broke into the shop. Quick, let's open it and see what's inside. It's gotta be empty, obviously. Oh. What the?
Good gracious, this is no ordinary box, it seems.
Wow. Although, in truth, I had an inkling that might be the case.
It would appear that the box houses a miniature music box movement.
Then, is it too much to expect?
I think it would be reasonable to assume that it is a device for the playback of this disc, my lord.
So, here we have the means to play back Mr. McGilder's disc, deposited at Windybanks at much the same time.
Not strictly correct, my lord. It was not McGilder's disc. It was the disc of his victim in the omnibus.
But why, for heaven's sake? Are we to understand that the brickmaker was trying to sell this music box disc to Mr. McGilder? Is it blackmail? Is it an audio tape? An audio log? Was he blackmailing McGilded? I believe the answer will become clear if we listen to the music on the disc, my lord.
Yes, very well. Let the court now listen to this curious disc at last.
What?
Why, my lord? Good grief! What is the meaning of this, Inspector? A music box and a disc are... well, they're unrelated to the case. Nah, no need to spoil the somber atmosphere in the courtroom with some silly bit of music.
Oh. Are they government secrets? This disc may very well have motivated the culprit in this case to commit murder. Clearly, there's every chance that it's fundamentally important to understanding what happened.
The prosecution has no objection.
But no! That piece of evidence is police property now. You can't...
Clearly, Scotland Yard has some vested interest here, but it is policy of this prosecutor to leave no avenues unexplored, and you, Inspector, have no jurisdiction here to prevent that from happening.
No further delays, please. Play the disc. It's gonna be a secret government meeting. I know it is. Oh. Is it Morse code? Maybe it's Morse code. Ding 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 ding. 1 2 1 2 1 2. The allies are approaching. No.
What on earth? It's certainly not what I would call music.
No. It's just the same note playing over and over again in an irregular sequence.
Mr. Graydon?
This really is priceless. After all that, the music box is broken. Broken? It can't be, can it? Well, obviously. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the officer sent to fetch it didn't drop it on the way back to the courtroom. Well, with much regret, I fear the court must accept that this music box offers little in the ways of clues. Are you ready to move on, Kazu? Come on. Yeah, alright. It does sound as though it's completely broken, but... is it? Could this music emanating from the music box be a new clue? Sure, why not? I believe that it could be relevant, my lord.
Good lord, but how can it be? It's an abomination, Kazu.
Mere noise. I fail to see how it can have any meaning whatsoever. It does sound strange, I agree. But there's one thing bothering me. While Graydon stands there chortling victoriously, the inspector beside him has a rather telling expression on his face. It's as if Gregson recognizes the sound, as if he's familiar with it somehow. And that's making him appear extremely on edge.
If that's the stance of the defense, my Nipponese friend, answer me this.
Oh? Dun, 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 dun.
Just what relevance do you propose this woeful chiming has on this case?
It's the defense's belief that the sound emanating from this music box is... Just because this is a music box, it doesn't necessarily mean the sounds we're hearing are music. Look at that. The smile vanished from Graydon's lips as soon as I said it. I'm on the right lines here. I must be. Hehe, making deductions based on how people react to what you say. You're acting just like earlier, you know?
Objection! The sounds we're hearing aren't necessarily music. Well, now that you've told us what they are not, I'm sure the court would like to hear what they are. Do enlighten us, my Nipponese friend.
Well,
surely you have an idea in mind, because if not, it will be the death of your ill-formed argument.
Exactly. The music box is clearly broken. Refusing to accept that fact is pure foolishness. You have got me. I don't know what the answer is. Yet. Do I have new evidence? No. Bruno. I've just examined the music box very thoroughly. And I'm fairly certain that it's not broken at all. Really? Really. The way it's been made, it can only produce a single note anyway. Thank you, Iris. Does it have settings? Can we choose what note it plays? Alright, well, if the music box isn't broken, it must mean that the sounds it's producing have some significance that isn't musical. Ah. Could it be? Is that what these sounds are? What? Morse code? Something just struck me, Bruno. I feel like recently, in the past few hours even, I've heard another sound very much like this one. I've heard another sound very much like the one this music box makes. Yeah, it's a familiar sound. Actually, Iris, I was just thinking exactly the same thing. I'm going to have to press the defense for an answer. If your assertion is that the sound produced by this music box is not, in fact, music at all, then what the devil is it, Kazu? All the evidence we've seen so far, all the testimony we've heard, it's all pointing to one single answer now.
The prosecution demands that my learned Japanese friend presents proof now. Tangible proof of this latest vast speculation.
Alright then. This could be the best chance I'm gonna get to fight back in this trial. And if I'm right, it's gonna join all the dots together. The evidence that explains the true nature of the sounds on this music box disc is... a gun. It's a sound we recently heard. So what could it be? A bullet? The music box is the music box disc. I don't know. The newspaper? It's a government secret that's been leaked. Right? Leaked overseas? Yeah, overseas. That's how they leak information overseas, with Morse code. As the lady explained. Yeah, it's the paper. Here we go. It's the paper. It has to be.
Today's paper, Kazu.
The headline is Pawnbroker perishes in pig purse plunder. Hardly supportive of your case, of your cause. No, my lord. I was hoping you'd look a little further down the page.
Further down.
Ministry mole. Classified secrets may have been leaked overseas from Ministry of Justice.
Yes, this is a very serious matter,
Being investigated at the highest level, I understand.
I have heard that international transmission along supposedly secure lines are somehow being intercepted and leaked to various other countries.
And presumably those transmissions are in the form of wired telegrams?
Of course.
Juror number 5, your input, please. Stop. Oh, me, sir? Whatever is the matter? You told the court before that you worked at the same communication station as Mr. Graydon, did you not? Yes, that's correct. And the particular station where you work deals with government's communication and newspaper reports? Oh, yes, we're not your run-of-the-mill communication station at all. Our work is extremely important. Then tell me, is this not a very familiar sound? You don't mean to say, is it? That's right, madam. It bears more than a passing resemblance to the sound made by your telegraph machine as you tap it. I believe it's called Morse code. But
I don't believe it.
Believe it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to leaking telegrams from government departments, there could be nobody more perfectly placed than a highly skilled communications officer.
Are you suggesting that the music box disc contains stolen government secrets and Morse code?
We all just heard it.
Order! Order! Please, everyone, order! But this is high treason, Council, deserving of capital punishment. Too much new vocabulary. What is this treason, and what is capital punishment?
The sort of words I'd have expected you to know.
For our sovereign government's confidential information, hostile nations would surely pay almost any price.
Yes, and on that night 2 months ago, that was the very negotiation that was taking place inside the omnibus.
But in the end, McGill had perished, and all important disc lay unclaimed in the pawnbrokery. My word!
In which case, whoever stole that information in the first place must surely have been beside himself with worry. Because if the disc were to be discovered before it found its way out of the country,
it would reveal an act of high treason punishable by death.
So the culprit had no choice but to retrieve it. And in order to do that, he would have to gain entry to the pawnbrokery illegally in the middle of the night. Because the article left behind by Mr. McGilded would incriminate him too much if it got into the wrong hands. Isn't that right, Mr. Graydon? You think I've been stealing government secrets? Preposterous. Absolutely preposterous.
So, in response to the defense's accusation, you claim complete innocence, do you?
Well, of course I do. I've had to stand here in silence while that pretentious foreign lawyer has been prattling away.
Objection!
Then by all means, counter the charges, sir. The prosecution demands the witness testifies in response to the accusations brought by the defense.
Delighted, I'm sure. The witness is reminded that the crime under scrutiny in this trial is the murder of the pawnbroker, Mr. Windybank. That being a most flagitious offence, for which the law of this land sanctions as capital punishment. But the heinous act of high treason is no less serious than a... But the heinous act of high treason is no less serious a crime. I urge you to bear that in mind as you testify, Mr. Graydon. So then, let us proceed. You may... What the... You gotta let us have a rabbit and pork here, Governor. We got things to say. I beg your pardon? Who do you think you are? Name's Nash Skulkin. Occupation is professional baddie.
Name's Nash Skulkin, but we ain't baddies enough to sell out our motherland.
That's right. We're what they call... the Three Skulkin Brothers.
Bad timing, fellas. Very bad timing.
Okay. A mere communications officer couldn't possibly steal confidential government information. Besides, the sounds produced by that music box aren't even Morse code. It was some low-class brickmaker negotiating with McGilded anyway, was it not? I have no relation to the man. Look, all we done is break into the gaff the other night like what he told us to do.
If we known there was dodgy government secrets involved, we wouldn't have touched it.
Right.
Mr. and Mr. Skulkin.
One Mr. will do, Governor. What's up?
Do I take it that you now admit to the crime? That on the night in question, you did indeed gain entry to the premises illegally? And moreover, you did so as a party of three in collaboration with Mr. Graydon here?
We did, Gov. We did.
Quieten down, please. What say you to that, Mr. Graydon?
I have no idea what these two ruffians are referring to. You little rotter, getting us mixed up in all this monkey business? You never said nothing about no government secrets. It was supposed to be a straight-up job.
What about the geezer shop he was, eh? Poor old bloke didn't have to die, did he?
Nice to know who your friends are. Whatever these men say, I deny the accusations.
Indeed. Well, I certainly wasn't expecting this little music box to become so significant in the proceedings. However, as it has, I will admit it now into the court record as evidence.
Alright, well, first thing we gotta do is examine it. What's this? Oh, what is it, Runa? I've just noticed something about this music box. It looks like the bottom of it opens up as well. Ah, you're right. Well, come on then. What are you waiting for? Let's open up. Alright then, here it goes. Look at that. There's another movement on the underside. So, does that mean you can set another disc to play back on this side? Yeah, I think so. It looks like the two movements are linked together. They're linked? So if you had two discs, they would both play back at the same time. Interesting. Who would have thought there would be a second movement on the underside of the box? And this movement is not the other one. The comb's teeth are all the same length. So, this movement also only produces a single tone like the other one. Yeah, it must do. Except that the length of the teeth on the two combs isn't the same. So the single tone produced by this movement will be different to the single tone we've already heard. What? Basically, each movement can only produce a single note. But the notes they produce are different. A music box that can only play two notes. Interesting. Are we not going to update the evidence? No? That's not an important thing now to know? Sure. Okay, well. I guess we'll leave it then. This is the mechanism that turns the bumps on the disc into sound, isn't it? Yeah, the movement. It's all thanks to the comb with its teeth that are plucked by the passing bumps. Usually, the teeth on the comb are different lengths, so that each one produces a different tone. But this comb is very strange. All the teeth are exactly the same length. Well, what does that mean? It means that no matter which tooth is plucked by the passing bumps, the music box will make the same sound. I've never seen a music box like this before. Yeah, it is strange. A music box that can only play a single note. There has to be some significance to that, surely. We'll take the disc and put it on the other side. See how the For McGilda disc sits in the music box the man deposited at Windybanks? It couldn't be a more perfect fit. There's no question then. The disc was designed to be played in this music box. Yet despite that, the sound it produces are neither musical, nor do they appear to have any meaning. It just doesn't make any sense. I wonder, perhaps there's more to this music box than meets the eye. Maybe we haven't discovered all its secrets yet. Alright, I guess I did that backwards. Now if you go back here, is something going to change? Would have thought there would be a second movement on the other side of the box. One must do. What? Basically, music box that can only produce two notes. Nope. Okay. Nothing has changed. So how do we use that as evidence? I don't know. They're saying that there's still mysteries to be solved, but I don't know. I don't see them. See how okay, yeah. Alright, back to the cross-examination, I guess. A mere communications officer couldn't possibly steal confidential government information. So is this newspaper headline accurate? Government communications are being intercepted? How could I possibly know? What do you mean by that? Any important government communications are handled by high-level officers, by specialists. General members of staff in the station where I work would never be entrusted with sensitive information. Oh no! Oh no! Stop! Must say something! Stop! Let me guess. Juror number 5? We regular communication station officers aren't as loady as you're being led to believe. A team of us are responsible for setting up and testing the telegraphs used by the ministry. And Mr. Graydon is the team leader. That's fascinating. Graydon is a highly skilled operator. Stop. Currently in presence of idol. Stop. So you had access to the equipment used for these confidential communications, Mr. Graydon. Well, what of it? The transmissions are always made behind closed doors, so they can't be heard. In any case, all the messages are sent in cipher. Normal employees couldn't possibly understand them. Oh no, stop! Must say something, stop! Mr. Graydon regularly attends meetings with ministry technicians and the ministry communications team. He's ensuring that there are no errors in important international communications. And he's received the top prize at cipher code cracking. And he's received the top prize at the cipher cracking convention 5 years in a row now. That's fascinating. Graydon is a highly skilled operator. Stop. Vital. Stop. Well, your idol would appreciate it if you'd keep your mouth shut. She should really pick her idols more carefully. I tell you, this lawyer's accusations are completely unfounded. Besides, the sounds produced by that music box aren't even Morse code.
Hold it!
They're not? To anyone with a brain, that would be blatantly apparent on listening to that music box for even a few seconds. Of course.
Surely it can't be that my learned friend is unfamiliar with Morse code?
Ouch, he looks genuinely shocked at my ignorance. Ha. I would be more happy to demonstrate the basics for you, sir. A lesson here in court? Morse code is a continuous series of two distinct tones. Tones, you say? Yes, a short dot and a long dash. By combining those in different ways, you construct letters. I see. For example, this is A, and this is B. But when you listen to the sound produced by this music box, you only hear one tone, don't you? But it sounds so similar. The rhythm of it is the same and everything.
But there's no discernible meaning to this apparently random sequence of sounds. So your assertion is fundamentally flawed. This is not Morse code.
No! Really, you shouldn't be so surprised. What did I tell you? That music box is nothing but a worthless piece of scrap. No, you said it was broken, because it was only playing one note. You know about the second disc. I know everything. Perhaps you might consider studying your subject matter before casting aspersions in the future. Oh, stop. Nothing to say but stop. Oh, it's so frustrating, isn't it? Iris? I mean, if the government secrets were somehow being leaked using the music box, so many other things would slot into place so nicely. Could there still be something I haven't considered? Would it really be impossible to use this music box somehow to play back music? Would it really be impossible to use this music box somehow to play back Morse code? We know now it's true. There's still every possibility that this music box was instrumental in the leaking of government secrets. That's the belief of the defense, at least.
Objection!
Does it please you in some way, my Japanese friend, to repeat the same line of argument ad infinitum? It's already been established that to be Morse code, two tones are required, dots and dashes.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Then what?
Well, it would appear the defense has a hypothesis to put forward. You had better present your idea at once, Kanzo. How do you propose that this music box, which appears to produce only a single tone, could have been used to cipher secret messages into Morse code? It's possible if you look here. Hold on. It's stuck. Hold on. Let's open it up. Look at that. There's another. Here we go. I'm gonna show you the evidence now. Here we go. Okay.
Got it!
Good gracious, what am I looking at here? Another movement on the underside of the music box? What?
It appears, my lord, that the two movements are linked together. In other words, you can put 2 discs in this music box, and the sounds of both will play back at the same time.
Good heavens!
As the court has heard, Morse code comprises of 2 tones, a dot and a dash. With the second disc in place, this music box can be used to generate Morse code and convey a message. This is beyond a joke. I'm sorry? This poor excuse for a lawyer has absolutely no evidence to support his claims.
So of course, if my learned friend were able to present the court with the second disc, that would be another matter. Well,
I can't at the moment.
And may I remind the court that, as the witness has pointed out, he was not the one in the omnibus with McGilda 2 months ago, striking a deal over the disc, or discs.
Indeed, that was Mr. Mason, the brickmaker. Exactly. I had nothing whatsoever to do with it. Is he his son or something? Let's look. Mason Milverton. From the East End. Milverton. Okay, Mason Milverton. Okay. Though it has holes, I must admit the argument presented by the defense has much promise. I believe the court's examination should continue. The link between Graydon and the victim of the omnibus case must be there somewhere, but I haven't found it yet. Oh dear, it looks like you need to give your argument more strength, Bruno. You will reiterate your testimony if you please, Mr. Graydon. If I must, then I maintain exactly what I did at the start of this pointless cross-examination. It was some low-class brickmaker negotiating with McGilda anyway, was it not? I have no relation to the man.
Hold it!
So 2 months ago in that omnibus, McGilda killed the brickmaker and stole the disc.
Mr. Mason was a single man with almost nothing to his name. Seems he lived in an artisan quarter some years ago, but people there remember little about him.
That doesn't make much sense, though, does it? How would a humble brickmaker come to acquire secret government information? How indeed. There must have been somebody else involved behind the scenes in all this. Somebody who acquired the disc and gave it to Mr. Mason, in order to take it to the meeting with McGilda to negotiate a deal. Dear me. You may have it in for me, sir, but I assure you, I have far more class than that. An old brickmaker from an artisan quarter and this well-to-do communications officer. If only I could find some evidence to link the 2 of them together. If you have nothing more to add on that note, let us return to the witness testimony. Look, all we done is break into the gaff the other night like what he told us to do. Like Mr. Graydon told you to do, you mean? That's it, yeah. Who else, eh? Silly me thought he was just popping over for a natter after all them years, but the rotter had a dodgy job for us. Hey, Ash? Let me stop you there, Mr. Skulkin. After all them years, you say? Do you mean to tell me that Mr. Graydon is an acquaintance of yours? We're the sociable kind of baddies, you know. Sure, let's say Graydon's an old China.
Excuse me.
Oh. Is something wrong, Mr. Skulkin? Hey! No, the other Mr. Skulkin.
What? Oh, me?
When your brother was testifying just now, he said something that seemed to cause you to react.
I just remember the old days, that's all. We used to have a right old laugh together way back when.
Together? With Mr. Graydon, you mean?
Yeah, with Ash, I mean. You look at him now with his fancy whistle and flute, and you wouldn't admit it. But when he was younger, he was from a poor part of town, just like us.
Is that so?
But he was always a leery one. He had the brains, he had the savvy, always coming up with small ideas like what would never have gone through our heads.
Gore blimey, ain't that the truth? Remember Milverton and Skulkin's milk run? That was a corker, eh?
Save it until after the trial. You reminiscing has no place in this courtroom. And neither does your fruit.
Oi, the geezer asked us a question, didn't he? And we was answering.
Yeah, we ain't done nothing wrong.
Nevertheless, the court is not prepared to accompany you on your trip down memory lane. Counsel, can we turn our attention back to the testimony, please? I don't know. Could that sentimental story be relevant somehow? It sure is. My lord?
Yes, counsel?
The brother's last sentimental statement could hold vital information relating to this case.
Very well, counsel.
I will permit the brothers to supplement their testimony with that detail.
Briefly, I hasten to add.
Say no more. Us skulkins never skulkin. Milverton and Skulkin's milk run. Gore, them were the days. I'm sure I'm gonna regret asking, but what exactly was that? Some kind of business? Just a little scheme we had going back when we was youngsters. A bit of fun, really.
Delivering fresh meat to the locals, that's what it was all about.
That sounds alarmingly legitimate. There must be a catch. I suppose since we're here, I should ask them to elaborate. But on what? So this business was just a bit of fun, you say? And it was just yourselves and Mr. Graydon involved? Yeah, that's it. Milverton and Skulkin's milk run, was it?
Yeah, that's it.
And where did the Milverton part come from? Oh, right. I thought a clever clogs like you'd work out. Enough of this. How much longer are we expected to listen to this drivel? I don't... Let me guess. You don't accept anything those two witnesses are saying? Well, I do. Tell me, why is it that it was only at the mention of the name Milverton that you decided to interject? Because well... It weren't the happiest of homes that one came from.
Yeah, his old man was struggling for money so much, his wife walked out on him.
She took the name Graydon then, see?
But Ash would always be Milverton to us.
Milverton. So that used to be your surname, did it? Of course not. This is all bunkum. I have been a Graydon since I was born. Do you really think you can rely on the testimony of these two thieves, hmm?
You're a communications officer attached to the civil service. As such, your personal details will have been sorely checked at the time of your appointment. It would be a very simple matter indeed to subpoena those records, Mr. Graydon.
Well, it would appear that Mr. and Mr. Skulkin's testimony has been reliable. For once. You were born Ashley Milverton, then? Is that correct? Very well. Yes. So Ashley Graydon was once Ashley Milverton. That information could change things, and could turn out to be extremely important. Yeah. Very important indeed. All of a sudden, we seem to be up to our necks in a serious matter of national security. Although, all this talk about interception of secret government messages is still conjecture at this stage. It would explain a number of things, though, wouldn't it? The negotiation Ginny overheard on the omnibus 2 months ago, and the break-in in Whitney Banks. But the trouble is, it wasn't Mr. Graydon in the omnibus with Mr. McGilded. No, that was Mr. Mason, the brickmaker who was so horribly murdered. If only there was some link between the two men somehow. I know, but Mr. Graydon's testimony seems to be as watertight as ever. I wonder if the key to us making headway with the cross-examination here could be those two brothers. They already gave us all we need. Is there something that I didn't press?
If we know those dodgy government secrets involved, we wouldn't have touched it.
So did you know nothing about this music box?
We didn't know nothing. We still don't know nothing. We ain't planning on knowing nothing about it neither.
But 2 nights ago, you did indeed break into Windybank's pawnbrokery, didn't you? In your original testimony, you said that the door of the shop was ajar, and that it was like some kind of a sign begging you to go in. But the truth is, you were planning to break into the Windybanks all along, weren't you?
We were, Golf, we were. You're right there.
'Cause that's what he told us to do. It was his plan. And why was it Mr. Graydon's plan to break into Windybanks that night? Did you not ask the reason?
Well, he said the place was full of stuff worth nicking. That's what he told us beforehand anyway. Turned out it was a lot of cobblers, didn't it? I wasn't best pleased, I can tell ya.
In any case, if they know the real reason, it doesn't sound like they're gonna give it away. Alright. Alright, back. I have no relation to the man, you say? Let me... How do I... This? There we go. Mr. Ashley Milverton? Tell me, why did you try to hide your former name from the court? Because I haven't gone by that name for years. It means nothing to me. No, I don't think that's the real explanation at all. The truth is, you had a reason to hide that name.
Explain yourself, please, Kazu.
I have here the notes from the omnibus case, my lord. And as we all know, the victim, the man who we now understand to have been negotiating with McGilded.
Yes, Mr. Mason, the brickmaker.
That's right. Only Mason wasn't his surname at all. It was his given name. His full name was Mason Milverton.
Milverton? Do you mean to say? Saints alive!
Mr. Ashley Milverton, is it not the case that the brickmaker, Mr. Mason Milverton, was your father?
I don't... As I believe I mentioned earlier, your family history will have been sorely checked when you joined the civil service. And it really would take no time at all for the court to subpoena those records. Grr.
The truth is, you have been illegally acquiring highly confidential information, government information, and selling it to Mr. McGilded in collaboration with your father. The new facts and evidence unveiled by the cross-examination of this witness all come together to reveal the truth. The truth, you say? That you collaborated with your father, Mr. Mason Milverton, in illegal dealings with Magnus McGilded.
By dint of this music box, you mean, Kazu?
Yes, stealing information being sent in secret government communications and selling it on to Mr. McGilded. Mr. Graydon concocted this elaborate scheme of using 2 music box discs to encode the information, as presumably a safety measure against the information falling into the wrong hands.
And a very effective one. I shouldn't have given the scheme any credence whatsoever. But the deal with McGilded went sour, and the brickmaker met his end.
Yes, but before he was arrested, McGilded managed to temporarily dispose of the stolen disc at the pawnbroker. Then, having learned of the situation, you appeared at Windybanks 2 days ago, in an attempt to recover the 2 articles McGilded had placed in pawn there.
But that attempt failed.
One of the discs was seized by the police, and the other was never found. So that same night, you enlisted the help of the Skulkin brothers and broke into the pawnbrokery. This time, determined to recover the second disc.
Are you suggesting that the second disc was inside the music box?
Eh?
We never knew nothing about that.
On the night that Mr. Windybank was killed, the intruder to the pawnbrokery touched one item and one item alone, the music box.
As rather ingeniously demonstrated using the 2 prints from the security camera, indeed.
So, the question that naturally begs answering is this. Why was only that one article disturbed? The answer is obvious, because it contained the second disc which the intruder was desperate to retrieve. Since, if it were to fall into the hands of the police, it would be proof of high treason. Well, Mr. Graydon, do you deny that all of this actually began on that fateful night 2 months ago? I refuse to accept any of this nonsense. Sir, there appears to be blood seeping through the sleeve of your jacket. What? 2 nights ago, we know that 3 shots were fired at the scene of the crime in Windybank's pawnbrokery. One took the life of the pawnbroker himself. One struck the pouch around Mr. Sholmes' waist. And the final bullet struck the calendar on the wall of the shop, having first pierced the arm of one of the intruders. Mr. Graydon, that wound on your arm that you seem to be trying to hide, it's a bullet wound, isn't it? He's got you now, me old China.
Time to call it quits and croak, I reckon.
Don't acknowledge my presence there under any circumstance whatsoever. Those were my terms, remember? And I paid you handsomely to comply. Clearly I was a fool to think I could trust some common backstop thieves. Fine, I admit it. I was there in Windybanks that night. I paid this pair 10 guineas to accompany, and as you've noticed, I sustained an injury in the course of my adventures. But that is all. I admit to nothing more. Stealing government secrets, negotiating with Mr. McGilded. Ha! As God is my witness, I am sure I recall nothing of the sort. He's not gonna go down without a fight. Not until I can show hard evidence, I suppose. Nevertheless, the defense has now established a crucial fact.
Which is?
Well, we know that one bullet was fired from each of the 2 firearms we have in evidence. The bullet from the Skulkin brothers' gun hit the pouch around Mr. Sholmes' waist, and the bullet from Mr. Windybank's gun clearly must have been the one that caught Mr. Graydon on the arm.
Indeed it must. We can rule out the possibility that the man shot himself.
And that leads us to only one conclusion. Mr. Windybank was shot by a 3rd gun, which can only have been fired by the 3rd intruder.
Goodness!
That's right, Mr. Graydon. The only person who could possibly have shot Mr. Windybank that night is you. Yeah. What? You little upstart. You made a grave mistake when you summoned me here. What? What's that supposed to mean? Yes, as you rightly say, I was there at the pawnbroker's. I did my best to hide the fact, naturally. I had no intention of ruining the distinguished career I had built for myself at the communications station. But did the thought never cross your mind? Did you never consider the possibility? What? What do you mean? What thought? What possibility? The possibility that if I was there at the scene, I may have witnessed the crucial moment. You see, this makes me a key witness in this case, and I have my hands firmly around the neck of your client.
What? Are you suggesting?
I saw it all. I saw the very moment that pickpocket girl pointed the gun at that poor, defenseless pawnbroker and shot him.
You what? Order! Well, it would seem we are finally entering the last act of this theatrical trial. Mr. Graydon?
Yes?
I trust you are fully aware of the implications here. If it is shown that your claim is false, you will have incriminated yourself as the killer.
Oh, I understand fully. Then I must ask you to give your formal testimony once more. You will explain to the court precisely what you saw at the moment the defendant allegedly shot the victim. Nothing would give me greater pleasure. While these ruffians were jostling with the broker, I was still near the entrance to the shop. When Windyback threw Nash over the counter, I felt a sharp pain in my arm. I pursued the man, but he shut himself in the storeroom. I could see him through the peephole in the door, though. The accused, in a black coat, shot the man in the back as he was trying to flee to safety. I saw the blood spatter all over that wretched girl. Then she tossed the gun out of the peephole, so I picked it up and made my escape.
Good gracious, this is quite extraordinary testimony. You claim, sir, under oath, to have clearly seen the defendant pulling the trigger? Order!
It wasn't my intention to testify in this way. But neither is it my intention to be found guilty of a murder I didn't commit. So you see, my hand has been forced. I tell the truth now as an act of self-preservation. The truth.
Until now, the prosecution was completely unaware of these details. Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that.
Having shot me in the arm, the pawnbroker was then shot in the back by the accused. And as I said, she was showered in his blood.
You say the blood spattered over the accused's coat. Are you sure on that point?
Oh yes, quite sure. All over the black overcoat that pickpocket girl was wearing at the time.
Really? If her coat could somehow be shown to harbor vestiges of blood, that would be conclusive evidence here.
Such an investigation is entirely possible, my lord. What?
Only very recently, a German scientist has developed a technique to identify human blood. So here's to true science, not some amateurish detective's dubious foray into the world of chemistry.
It's nothing dubious about Early's work. His ideas are all sound.
Ideas are no use to us here. In science, as in law, theories must be proven before they stand. In Germany, the technique has already been employed in the courtroom as the basis of evidence. Scotland Yard has a small quantity of the chemical reagent used with your loaded ship's permission. We could shatter all vestiges of doubts within minutes.
This doesn't look good, Reno. Why not? Because she has Mr. Mason's blood on her coat. Well, we know, don't we? That there's blood all over the front of Ginny's coat. If they tested with their chemicals... Oh, help, you're right. I was forgetting what happened yesterday. Don't move, Ginny. I'm gonna shoot. But that's not Mr. Windybank's blood. That stain is from 2 months ago. That's Mr. Mason's blood, from when he was stabbed by McGilded, who was wearing the coat at that time. My lord, the defense objects to the test proposed by the prosecution.
Overruled. Lord Van Zeeks, make it so at once. With pleasure, my lord.
And while we await the results, the defense may proceed with the cross-examination. Once they find that blood on the overcoat, Gina will be...
Cancel?
Yes, my lord.
Your cross-examination.
Of course, my lord. If this cross-examination doesn't go well, if I don't manage to uncover some decisive evidence or a really compelling clue now, I have a very bad feeling about the outcome of this trial. Oh dear. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. I had to take a little bathroom break. Sorry about that. Here we go. While these ruffians were jostling with the broker, I was still near the entrance to the shop. Mr. Windybank emerged from the storeroom, I believe. Ringo and Nash were scouring the counter when he suddenly appeared and flew at them. He already had the revolver in his hand. Fortunately, I wasn't too close. I've never been so scared in all my life.
Yeah, we're just your regular mild-mannered burglars, that's all. We don't like violence.
Says the pair who carry a gun. What do you mean when you say you were near the entrance of the shop? I was in the doorway, running my eyes over the shelves of forfeited items. Looking for the music box, of course. The broker went for Nash in the first place. Then Ringo joined in, making it 2 against 1, so I assumed they could handle the situation. But I was wrong.
I was trying to help me little bruv, but the old geezer attacked me over the blimmin' counter.
So I pulled me gun on the old fella, and that soon made him scarper.
The pair of you setting upon the poor defense's pawnbroker together? Shame on you!
Sorry, Gov. When Windybank threw Nash over the counter, I felt a sharp pain in my arm. You mean that's the moment you were shot? Yes, though I didn't immediately realize what had happened, of course. Things crashed to the floor from the counter as the 3 men were brawling. It was exactly at that moment that it happened, so I didn't hear the gunshot. And the bullet went on to strike the calendar in the wall behind you. So it would appear. When I looked at my arm, I saw it was bleeding badly, so I wrapped my handkerchief around it. Seeing as I couldn't explain what had happened to a doctor, I had no choice but to wait for it to heal. I didn't imagine it would still be bleeding 2 days later.
Did Mr. Windybank intend to shoot you, do you think? You think?
Well, no, I don't imagine he even noticed I was there, to be honest. Perhaps the gun went off accidentally. Anyway, it didn't quite strike me home. It didn't quite strike home. When I pulled my gun on him, he tried to shove me out of the way.
And then he scampered through that door at the back. At which point, what did you do?
I pursued the man, but he shut himself in the storeroom. I could see him through the peephole in the door, though. You mean you chased after him? I don't recall the reason why, but I ran after him to the back of the shop. And what about this peephole in the door you mentioned?
Well, unsurprisingly, the storeroom door was a sort of job. Matched that wood. But there's a small opening in it, about it height, that lets you see what's in there from the outside.
Actually, I should know that, shouldn't I? I looked through it myself that night.
And what about your burgling brothers? Did you see what went on to this peephole as well?
Not likely, Gov.
Did you see that for sure, Gov?
I doubt these two buffoons were even aware of the peephole's existence. So the Skulkin brothers were there, but they didn't see the killing of Mr. Windybank take place. Inside the storeroom, I could see the broker and that young girl standing there.
Defendant?
Yes, though neither of them noticed that I was looking. The girl raised her gun and pointed it straight at the man.
And then, what did you see next?
The accused in a black coat shot the man in the back as he was trying to flee to safety.
Hold it!
Right. Yeah, when the crime was discovered, the defendant was found with a gun in her hand, but that was Mr. Windybank's gun, from which only a single bullet had been fired. And as we've already established, Mr. Graydon, that bullet was fired at you. But no, it wasn't the broker's gun that the pickpocket girl had when I saw her. Yes, the bullet from Windybank's gun grazed my arm, and yes, the Skulkin's gun grounded the detective. But this was another gun entirely. A third gun.
The broker's gun was not the murder weapon, so clearly there had to be a third firearm involved. In other words, the accused must have had her own gun with her at the time.
No, why did she take her... No other gun was found at the scene. Calm yourself, counsel. Sorry? You must consider the events in order. At first I saw the broker and the girl glaring at each other, but then, all of a sudden, the broker turned to run. And it was at that moment that the little gutter rat shot him in the back.
Chilling image, I must say.
I saw the blood spatter all over that wretched girl. All over her? Yes. Through the peephole I saw it clearly. Of course, the stains are invisible now, what with the coat being such a dark color. But I assure you, that garment is solid with the victim's blood. Well, it is solid with blood, that's for sure. But it's not Mr. Windybank's blood, is it? No, that's right. It's Mr. Mason Milverton's blood from when McGilded stabbed him 2 months ago. It's so annoying. If they'd only expect... It's so annoying. If they'd only accept Early's chemical analysis, we could prove that. But they won't. So unfortunately, we can't. Bother. Then she tossed the gun out of the peephole, so I picked it up and made my escape. Did I hear you correctly? She threw the gun out of the room? That's right. After the broker fell to the floor, she started walking over.
Over where, exactly?
In the direction of the storeroom door, to where I was watching. Of course, I quickly retreated, and then... the girl dropped the gun through the peephole onto the floor on my side of the door.
But why on earth would she do such a thing?
I couldn't tell you. Perhaps she was hoping to distance herself from the murder weapon. Without thinking, I went and picked it up. I suppose I was worried about just leaving it there, in case any more tragedies took place.
So it was you, in fact, who took the third gun from the scene of the crime?
Ah, yes, it was yours, surely. I left it clear up to my lackeys and left. Clear up? We'd made a bit of a mess around the counter, so Mr. Whistle and Flute here told us to tidy up.
He thinks he's our blimmin' mum sometimes.
But I was paying you enough, by God. Tell me, Mr. Graydon, when you left the pawnbroker that night, was it by any chance with the second disc in your jacket pocket? You're like a bull at a gate, aren't you? What the...
Excuse me.
What is the meaning of this, gentlemen?
Something wrong, Sunshine?
That should be my line. Do you realize you were just violently shaking Mr. Skulkin? Blimey. This D's a bit of an hooligan, ain't he? What was going on just now? You saw him. He grabbed and he whistled. Why the blazes, he said, didn't he mention the third gun when we got you down the station? And why didn't you? 'Cause we didn't know nothing about it, or that flaming peephole in the door.
Sorry about that. I can be proud to losing my hair sometimes. Not hurt, are ya?
Gore blimey, see the way he's looking at me? I'm telling you, this D gives me the willies. That was strange. The inspector doesn't normally get quite as worked up as that. He wouldn't normally grab someone. Now, that wasn't like Gregsy at all. He's normally all sweetness and light, no matter what I say to him. Yes, well, I think he might be a special case, Iris. Well, anyway, that was definitely out of character.
My lord, requesting your lordship's permission to interrupt the cross-examination.
Explain yourself, officer.
I have the results of the test that was ordered earlier, my lord.
Ah, the blood on the accused overcoat. Thank you, officer. Very well. The cross-examination is hereby temporarily suspended. I presume you have no objection, counsel? No, my lord.
Well, there you have it.
The report, please, Inspector.
Yes, sir. Traces of human blood were found on the overcoat of the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. From the extent of the stains, it appeared that they were the result of spattering following a gunshot wound. End of report. Goodness me!
Ah. See, what did I tell you? No, the blood on that coat is not Mr. Windybanks. What on earth makes you say that, Kenzo? The coat originally belonged to Magnus McGilded. Just before his coat was deposited at Windybanks, McGilded had fatally stabbed Mr. Mason Milverton. So the blood on that overcoat is the blood of the brickmaker from the omnibus case.
Objection.
Well, the dead cannot speak. Isn't that right, my Japanese friend? Sorry?
2 months ago in this very courtroom, did you not argue fervently for McGilded's innocence? And yet, now that the man is dead, you brand him as a murderer? Your conduct shatters any shred of respect you may have earned for yourself in this country.
But that was... I call it a bally disgrace. Treachery, that's what it is. How to determine whether the blood on that coat is 2 months old or not? Even the steadiest curve couldn't help the answer to that problem pop out. It can't be done. But... We used Mr. Sholmes' specially formulated Mr. Sholmes is a detective, not a chemist! Would you put such faith in chemical formula devised by me, for example, when I am a communications officer?
I held out Piruski to starving boy, and he ran away crying. Sherlock Sholmes is barely more than a figment of the public's imagination. His name carries no weight in this courtroom, no weight at all.
How could you say that? Victory is sweet indeed. This proves that my testimony is the whole truth, from start to finish.
How do you arrive at such a conclusion, sir? As the witness said, the accused coat was spattered with the blood of the victim. The only way Mr. Graydon could possibly have known that fact is if he saw that happen. In other words, his testimony is solid, and the conclusion is singular. It was the accused who shot the victim in this case. That is the whole truth. My lord, been a long battle this one, but this old warhorse has something to say now, if you please. Mr. Foreman, as of this moment, sir, the squadron has reached its final decision. Ready, men? All for one now. Sir! 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 Sir!
Guilty.
Guilty. Guilty.
Guilty.
Guilty.
Well, it would appear that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury have reached a unanimous verdict. The defense has consistently failed to unpick this witness's testimony. Here's to any attempt you may make at unpicking the juror's decision being equally successful.
I don't believe it. After I've come so far, how is it all unraveling on me so fast? How very distressing to be held in such low esteem.
Oh, how very distressing. Oh, would you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? Officer, you've delivered the report now. That will be all, thank you. It occurs to me with some regularity, Mr. Naruhodo, that scientific truths are determined not by science, but by none other than the human mind.
I know that voice. Who is it? Is it Hazunaga? Is it Hazunaga? Am I going mad? Ah! Oh, Mr. Sholmes!
What is the meaning of this? Order! Order! What business do you have here, detective? The last I heard you were recuperating in hospital.
As well as I would be, had I not been set upon an errand.
What errand?
Early, it's really you. You're away at last. Yes, good day, Iris. I appear to be rather late to rise. My apologies. Now, my lord, if you will humour me.
In what manner, sir?
I have something of great importance I wish to give to the young lawyer over there. I need no more than 5 minutes. Would you be so kind as to spare us the time?
What say you to this, Lord Van Zieks? This trial has taken many hours of the court's time. Having spent so long already... Exactly! Having spent so long already, we don't want to get wasted any more precious time. As I was saying, having spent so long already, it would seem churlish to deny the defense a mere 5 minutes. Very well then, Kazu, you have 5 minutes.
My dear fellow, I apologize for my tardy arrival. Mr. Sholmes, are you alright now? Alright, I'm all wrong. Sorry? I've only just managed to summon the strength to stand, man. I asked the judge for 5 minutes, but I fear even that may prove too much for me. Pray forgive me should I pass on. Let's make this discussion as short as possible. Hurley, this place is full of idiots. None of them can see how wonderful your chemical blood analysis is. Ah well, that concoction of mine was really just a bit of sport to assist me in my investigations. I never took the trouble to refine it for appraisal by the scientific community. An oversight on my part. Right. Modesty? Surely not. But enough of that. I'm here to give you this, my dear fellow. What's that? A lavender furushiki wrapping? A leaving present from Mr. Sato. From Mr. Sato? If possible, matters were to be settled without If possible, matters were to be settled without me giving you this. Those were her instructions when she asked me to do her this favor. I don't understand. Mr. Sato foresaw today's events, I believe. She knew that the culprit would attempt to escape justice by means both devious and underhand, and that you, Mr. Naruhodo, fighting fairly as you are wont to do, would find yourself in considerable peril. At that very moment of crisis, you were to be given this small parcel. Those were the dear lady's instructions. A leaving present from Susato-san. Whatever could it be? Is it the cat? What is this? Ow! It's the thing that makes little kitty doors. It's the machine I might. Oh. Meow. Meow. Look, I'll use this. It's my latest invention. What is that? I call it the cat flomat. It can make a cat flap for a little furry friend like Waggy in seconds. What's Susie up to? Mr. Sato muttered the following words before she left. I'm a failure. I don't deserve to be a judicial assistant. What? Didn't she say something like that? You really are the best judicial assistant in the world. Well, that is extremely flattering. But I'm sorry to say that I've been a complete failure. Whatever did she mean by that, Mr. Sholmes? That night, when you left Windybanks in pursuit of the thieves, Mr. Sato made use of this contraption for a certain purpose. That is your answer, dear fellow. No, not at all cryptic then. Sato-san used this cat flomat that night? But why? To open a door?
Your 5 minutes is over.
We're out of time already? I'm grateful to you for affording us that brief recess, Mr. Reaper.
I need no thanks, Detective. After all, the die is cast.
Is it really?
The jurors are unanimous in their leanings. No doubt my learned friend will consider a summation examination. But any attempt to alter the verdict now would be utterly futile.
I wonder... Mr. Naruhodo? Yes? The rest is down to you, dear fellow. What is your plan? The rest is down to me. I need to be careful here. If I make a wrong move, the trial will end. Badly. My lord, the defense requests... Just give me some time to think. Alright, let's try to... let's try to figure out this puzzle. Why did she use this machine? Oh? Whew! Those vicious teeth look like they could rip through almost anything. They're good, aren't they? They're made of a special alloy I developed just for the job. The cutter rotates 10 times per second so it can get through any kind of door in no time at all. And what are the two parts at the top there? Oh, those are for attaching hinges to the section of the door that gets cut out. Right, of course. Nothing can match this machine for power. It can make mincemeat of even the toughest of doors. The toughest of doors, you say? Sounds so charming and friendly when you say what it is for, but it feels like the reality of the cat flapomat is that it's a grim weapon of door destruction. What guy is so adorable, there's nothing I wouldn't do for him, even developing deadly weapons. It's good to know. Is the answer here? In the teeth? Inside here? The hinges? What does this mean, Sholmes? I don't understand. What do you want from me? Help me. I don't know what's going on. The symbol? I wish I could make a door to get me out of this mess. No, I don't think there's anything more to it. So, I'm not gonna present evidence, but that's not the thing. So Van Ziek says that the summation examination will achieve nothing, so maybe I should continue the cross-examination? Further cross-examination.
Objection!
The judges have spoken. Protocol dictates that you may not cross-examine a new witness now.
The defense is not asking for the cross-examination of a new witness, rather to continue with one of an existing witness.
What?
It would appear that a rather important detail has escaped your attention, Mr. Reaper.
My lord.
Requesting your lordship's permission to interrupt the cross-examination. Thank you, officer. Very well. The cross-examination is hereby temporarily suspended. I presume you have no objection, Kanzu? No, my lord. So nobody can say anything then. If Bruno asks to resume his cross-examination, Mr. Graydon, the court is obliged to allow it.
This is absurd.
I would remind those present that this is my courtroom. I concur that the defense is entirely within its rights to request the continuation of the cross-examination. However, I will not permit an unremitting protraction of these proceedings. Therefore, I have decided to afford the defense one final opportunity in concluding the cross-examination. Counsel, you must choose but one statement from the witness's testimony and but one piece of evidence to present in support of your argument against it. A single chance to present evidence? If, following that, the situation remains unchanged, I shall move to education. Is that clear, counsels? You will not press the witness any further.
My lord.
Yes, my lord. A single statement and a single piece of evidence. Most generous. Well then, Mr. Naruhodo, it's high time I fell in a dead faint. I leave this in your capable hands. Ah! Mr. Sholmes! Dun 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 dun.
To stand so insouciantly before the court in a state of such high fever, either the man has extraordinary strength of mind or an extraordinary lack of feeling. I imagine he's feeling very little now. The detective is sleeping soundly in one of the antechambers.
Strike a man when he's down, why don't you?
Well then, Kanzo, are you fully prepared?
Yes. One statement, one piece of evidence. I won't let Mr. Sholmes down. Or Iris.
Urgh.
And I won't waste this final chance that Susato-san has given me. This is going to decide the entire outcome of the trial.
Very well then, under the terms I've outlined, you may resume the cross-examination.